This is not how I thought today was going to go at all. Okay. Let's reset for a second. Actually, hold on. Okay, now let's talk. This morning, the news broke. The Tampa Bay Lightning trade forward Ross Colton to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for the second round, number 37 overall pick from the Colorado Avalanche. Ross Colton was set to become a restricted free agent on Saturday. In his time with the Lightning, he signed his entry-level deal, making basically league minimum. He got a one-year extension, or a one-year contract rather, during the second cup run, in which, by the way, he scored the Stanley Cup clinching goal that season. And then he signed on to be with the Lightning for the last 2 seasons. All of his deals came in under $1.5 million, as you would typically expect for what is probably a third or a fourth line forward. So moving forward, Ross Colton was due to get paid again. Now, was he going to command something ridiculously higher than, let's say, $2 million? Probably not. In terms of just points production, he's pretty much what you expect from a bottom 6 forward. But what makes him so valuable is the style that he plays. And his contributions come not necessarily from lighting up the score sheet and being one of the big names, but being a disruptive force, in particular in front of the goal mouth, which is where he did most of his work during his time with the Lightning. He fell very much in line with the kind of disruptive force that his teammates Alex Killorn and Corey Perry did. They're just not guys that you want to mess with. You don't want to find them alone in front of the net. And odds are you don't want to be battling them in front of the net either, because there's a pretty good chance that they're going to win that. And if they don't, well, they're going to punch you in the mouth. He's young, he's tough, he knows his role, and he does it so well. The thing that aggravates me the most, what's most frustrating about this deal, what's crawling under my skin as I have to say goodbye to Ross Colton, who is just, he's done so well for the Tampa Bay Lightning, that it had to happen. Look, for those people out there that don't follow hockey that much, let me give you one little insight on something you have to keep in mind as you're building a team for the future, something long term. The NHL implemented a salary cap, so there's parity across the league, meaning that no team can go above the $81.5 million, what I think is going to be $82.5 million going into this season. That's the most that you can spend on players. There are shenanigans that can be done within it, such as abusing the long-term injured reserve. I know Tampa has fairly done that, but it's largely put in place to make sure that the National Hockey League doesn't function like Major League Baseball, to where a handful of markets have all the money, can attract the top talent, can pay them whatever they want, and basically assure that they can be a dynasty for several decades on end. And it's a pretty common attribute that when a team goes on to win a Stanley Cup, or if they have sustained success during the playoffs over, I don't know, let's say a 3 to 6 year run, that they're going to be flirting with that salary cap, and they have to make some very careful moves, and they have to decide who is worth keeping long-term and ponying up for, and who are their pieces that, you don't really want to call them expendable, but they're expendable. Oh yes, good. Right in the middle of this, my friend Eva, who's a Colorado Avalanche fan, messages me and says, I didn't realize that trade for Colton was with us. I'm kidding. I love Eva. But that flirting with the salary cap is exactly what the Tampa Bay Lightning have had to do really since, let's call it 2018. Now, the ownership and management, Jeff Vinik, Julien Brisebois, hell, even John Cooper, if he has a hand in any of this, they've done a phenomenal job of keeping the key pieces that they want to and convincing them to take a little bit less money on their contracts for the sake of winning future championships, for the sake of sustained success. As you look down the Tampa Bay Lightning roster, you will not find anybody that is making over $9.5 million, which is really saying something when you have generational talent and future Hall of Famers like Steven Stamkos, won 2 Stanley Cup, couple of Rocket Richard trophies, just won the Mark Messier Award. Victor Hedman, again, 2 Stanley Cups, Norris Trophy winner, phenomenal defensive-minded individual. A guy like Nikita Kucherov, again, won 2 Stanley Cups, just like the next 2 guys I'm going to mention, but he somehow manages to, year in and year out, quietly challenge guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl for the league lead in point scoring. Brayden Point, again, 2 Stanley Cups with the Lightning, under contract for another 7 years. The thorn in the side of so many teams in the NHL. He's good for, I don't know, 40 to 50 goals every single season. Like, of course you're going to pay a guy like that huge money. And let us not forget who will definitely be a Hall of Famer in goaltender Andrei Vasilevskiy. I'm going to argue that he's going to be in the conversation for the best goalie of all time when his career is said and done. Like, forget it. Hall of Fame is an easy one for him, but even he is making $9.5 million. And in a league where superstars can easily make over $10 million, the Tampa Bay Lightning don't have any that do. They don't have a single player that cracks the top 10 in salary. A team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, however, have three. I tell you all that in an effort to demonstrate that the Tampa Bay Lightning invest well. They know who their core players are, they get them on board with the team dynamic and say, would you be willing to take a little bit less, maybe a little bit longer term, so you're still getting paid, in order that we can put some good supporting cast pieces around you. We saw that a couple years ago where they had to dismantle an entire third line, a third line, by the way, which could challenge a lot of teams for being a second or a first line in Yanni Gourde, Barclay Goodrow, and Blake Coleman. And these were all part of the cut tax because as they win more championships and as they get towards the end of their term, they of course want more money. Why wouldn't they? And so the Lightning are up against the cap once again. I said as much in my video where I debriefed after the series loss against the Toronto Maple Leafs that the supporting cast was probably going to look very different. And it got down to a couple of names that would potentially be on the chopping block for this coming season. Names like Corey Perry, Alex Killorn, Tanner Jeannot, and Ross Colton. Now, Corey Perry, he's probably going to test the open market. It wouldn't surprise me if he re-signs with Tampa, but it also wouldn't surprise me if he finds another team to sign on to for between $750,000 and $1.5 million and just tries to go win one more cup before he retires. The dude is old. And that leaves you with the trio of Alex Killorn, Tanner Jeannot, and Ross Colton. Even if Colton was to stay in Tampa, the Lightning have a little bit less than $7 million worth of cap space to play with for this upcoming season, and they have some holes that they need to fill. They only have 8 forwards under contract right now. You need at least 12 to ice a team. And we're probably going to be having the same conversation this time next year because the Lightning are set to have 4 defensemen become unrestricted free agents at the end of this coming season. And so supposing that they ignore the defensemen for this offseason, they need to focus on filling up their forward slots. They need at least 4, and they need to find a backup for Andrei Vasilevskiy. We don't know if Brian Elliott is going to come back. I could also see them calling up Hugo Onfelt in an effort to train him and get him ready to be Vasilevsky's backup for the foreseeable future. So between Killorn, Jeannot, and Colton, who's the odd man out? It's Ross Colton. We all know it is. And that's why I say it had to happen. Look, Julien Brisebois is not so dumb that he's going to go out and acquire Tanner Jeannot last year for a defenseman and 5 draft picks, only to turn around and let him walk mere months later. Alex Killorn is a fan favorite, a veteran leader, and basically an upgraded version of the style of player that Ross Colton is. So he's got to make a move to try to retain Alex Killorn as well. Now, Killorn is a known quantity. He's been making just under $4.5 million for basically as long as I can remember. I could see that the Lightning try to re-sign him for roughly that same amount in an effort to keep him there and have him end his career in Tampa. Tanner Jeannot, on the other hand, he's unknown. You don't know what you're going to get out of him. I mean, he's been in the league for, I think, 3 seasons. He was an okay source of production for the Nashville Predators. He didn't quite live up to the hype while he was on the Tampa Bay Lightning for, I don't know, what was it, 2 months during this last season? But he did get in a couple of big fights and he added some toughness to the roster, and that's really the kind of thing that you want from a 3rd or a 4th line forward anyway. But what kind of contract is he going to command? I don't know, but I get the sense that he's in a better position to negotiate than Julien Brisebois is. So let's just say, for instance, that they give Alex Killorn, let's say they talk him down to $4 million for 3 or 4 more seasons. That still gives you less than $3 million to re-sign Tanner Jeannot, and you still have to fill in the rest of your forward group and find a backup goalie. This is not a good situation. But Brisebois committed to trying, keyword trying, to sign both Killorn and Jeannot. I really don't know what he's going to end up doing with this because there are holes to fill and not enough money to do it with. And you got to think about how this affects the team long term, past this coming season. Steven Stamkos only has 1 more year left on his deal. Brandon Hagel only has 1 more year left on his deal. Victor Hedman has 2 more years left on his deal. The decisions that get made for this year's Tampa Bay Lightning are going to have repercussions for how they go about re-signing guys like Stamkos and Hedman and probably Brandon Hagel. So while I'm frustrated and I want to throw a hissy fit, I understand it is not an enviable position that Julien BriseBois and the Tampa Bay Lightning are in. You want to hold all of these cards close to your chest and you want to protect them as best as possible. That's not realistic in the economy and the rules that the NHL has set forward. So there's no doubt in my mind that the Colorado Avalanche, they won this trade. Absolutely, they won this trade. They got a quality player. They're going to re-sign him probably to a long-term deal at an affordable rate. He's going to slot in so nicely to the rest of that forward group. Oh, I'm upset again. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have to hope that this second-round draft pick that's coming up in this year's draft starting tonight is going to pan out and be a future asset. Someone NHL worthy. Like that's the hope. That's the goal. In the meantime, I'm going to pay very close attention to what else the Lightning are doing starting on July 1st. It's going to be a little wacky, and I'm sure I'm not going to be a fan of some of these moves, but I'm probably going to come to the same conclusion that these are things that have to happen. You know, that is unless they sign Tanner Jeannot to like $6 million for 8 seasons. I will break my computer screen if that happens. But anyway, I got to wrap this up. There's only so much I can say about this. But what do you think? Are you with me? Did Colorado get an absolute steal in this deal like I think they did? Or am I just missing something big time? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. I'll see you next time for more videos when more news drops. NHL draft is coming up tonight. I'm sure I'll have something to talk about there.